Hey everyone! I'm surprised how often I'm saying this these days, but I have big news on the Stop Killing Games campaign. This is not an exaggeration. We have a new option that could get new law introduced to start protecting games you've already paid for. Though it's only for Europeans. Again. Sorry, what can I say? Europeans seem to have all the options on consumer rights. I'll cut to the chase. The Digital Fairness Act in the EU has opened up for public commentary. Now, the Digital Fairness Act currently does not cover the problem of games being destroyed, but it covers a few issues adjacent to it. I'll get to them in a minute. So, the strategy here, which has been suggested by the BEUC and some political insiders I've talked to, is to politely suggest, hey, maybe the Digital Fairness Act could swing a little to the left and protect video games while it's at it. As of the time of me recording this, there are 17 comments on its page. So if we had, say, a few thousand polite suggestions to include protecting video games from being destroyed, that might get the EU's attention. From everything I've heard, this strategy has a real chance of working. I would not call this a long shot. I would say it's another one with maybe coin toss odds of being successful. And best of all, this is an additional option on top of everything else we've been doing. So the Consumer Protection Agency investigations in multiple countries? Still happening. The European Citizens Initiative? Still happening. Though seriously, hurry up if you haven't signed it and you're eligible. It ends in just a couple days. So let's go overkill and open up this new option. Though again, it's only for Europeans, sorry. But more people can participate in this than the Citizens Initiative. For example, some European countries aren't part of the EU, but they're EU adjacent. Like they'll share some policies with the EU or are actively trying to join it. So this is for all EU citizens, but if you're a citizen of Norway, Iceland, Turkey, or countries that are EU-ish, I've been told it's okay if you want to go and leave a comment on this also. Unfortunately, due to Brexit, that does not mean the UK. So UK commentary isn't going to help here. Sorry. So, what should you say? Well, that's up to you. This isn't meant to be a template letter. In fact, if everybody writes the same thing, that could get flagged as spam, so you really do have to put this in your own words. However, I've been given some guidelines. First, be polite. The EU is under no obligation to add our issue to the Digital Fairness Act. This is us making a request, so if you grouch at them, they'll probably ignore you. Second, ask if they can add protections against video games being destroyed that have already been sold to customers. If you have a personal experience with this, that's even better. If there was a game you liked that was destroyed, or if you're worried about a current game being destroyed due to it being online only with no end-of-life plan, you can tell them. Or you could bring up how hundreds of games have been destroyed already, and hundreds more are at risk of being destroyed. There's been a community-made index of them here if you want to take a look. And of course, feel free to mention that the Citizens Initiative already has over 1 million EU citizens expressing support for protecting video games from being destroyed. That might give this a little more weight. Maybe avoid URLs though, since that might trigger spam filtering. You can just leave a sentence or two, or you can write a short essay. You have up to 4,000 characters to work with. Now, you do have to register in order to give a comment, but they give a few options here. Electronic ID, even Facebook and Google. Also, select EU citizen or non-EU citizen if you're Norwegian or something. Do not select consumer organization. Stop Killing Games is not an official organization. It's just a grassroots movement. Anyway, if you leave a comment on this, you could be opening up a whole new avenue to protect games. Let's make the topic of game destruction impossible for the EU to ignore. The whole world has been ignoring this problem for 15 or so years, so we're making up for lost time here. Speaking of time, some good news. Unlike the European Citizens Initiative, which ends in a couple days, this is open until October 9th. So if you're watching this late, you can still leave a comment and help protect games. In fact, I have no idea if the EU's website can handle a flood of people or not. So on the off chance it goes down, just come back later. So that's the main news. You can stop watching here if you want. But some of you may be wondering, what is the Digital Fairness Act? And why is this a good option for protecting games? A very relevant question. Well, the Digital Fairness Act is a kind of hodgepodge of protections the EU is trying to push to rein in some bad practices occurring in the digital space. The big ones they mention are dark patterns in online interfaces, which is kind of weaponizing the GUI to do things customers don't want, addictive design of digital services that pushes users to spend more money, or hey, look at that! Gambling-like features in video games. See, this is what I mean. That's not the issue of stop killing games, but it's totally in the same neighborhood. Personalized targeting, like if they were to push gambling ads on someone who's a gambling addict. I imagine something like that. Making it hard to unsubscribe from digital subscriptions, and problematic commercial practices of social media influencers. So what we're trying to do is add a number 6 here. Publishers permanently disabling video games they have already sold. I'm sure they'll word it differently, but you get the idea. We're trying to invite ourselves to the party here. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, and that's, whoa, Ross. I'm someone who thinks we shouldn't have a lot of government interference. And this looks like a lot of government interference. I don't want games being destroyed, but I don't trust the EU not to go too far on this other stuff. They could screw it all up. Well, guess what? You could be completely right, and I'm not trying to tell you otherwise. Stop Killing Games is single issue. We are only trying to stop publishers from destroying video games you paid for. That's it. If we get that, then it's mission accomplished. All of this other stuff here is outside of our scope. So if you have strong opinions and all this other stuff, feel free to tell that to the EU also. See, the thing to realize is this stuff here is already set to happen. We had nothing to do with any of these proposals. But if there's a chance we can piggyback our issue onto legislation that's already happening with or without us, oh, yeah, we'll take it. I mean, we're trying to keep Stop Killing Games contained to just the core issue. But with the industry lobbying against us and taking a pot shot at us behind the scenes, we'll take almost any help we can get. Anyway, I want to end this saying concern for government overreach is a valid concern, but only up to a point. For example, the issues in the Digital Fairness Act sound like good practices to rein in, but I could also imagine scenarios where that backfires. But saying that about Stop Killing Games has always rung hollow to me. Because I think the worst possible thing that can happen to gaming is games you like or want to play being destroyed forever. Well, that's already happened to the tune of hundreds of titles, and the industry is promising to put resources into killing many, many more. I mean, live service games don't have to be synonymous with titles that are destroyed forever, but that's what the industry does the vast majority of the time. Now, of course, gaming could get worse than it is now, but I don't think it could be on a worse trajectory. I brought this up before, but I'll never let my audience forget it. If you want to know what the video game industry as a whole wants for us in the future, look no further than the original Xbox One reveal. Some highlights of that were no game sharing, needing to connect to the publisher every 24 hours or all your games would stop working, having every game you own on the platform be at risk of being completely destroyed when support ends, even if you have physical copies, and having a mandatory surveillance camera that could detect biometric data like your facial expressions or heart rate, and would upload that data to the publisher. Now, they ended up backing off of some of that due to competition, but the industry tipped its hand there. This is the trajectory we're currently on. It's just slower now. It's the whole boiling frog metaphor. Microsoft's mistake was they turned the heat up too fast. And it's not just them. Stadia had streaming-only exclusives. How do you get less ownership than that? Ubisoft has its infamous quote about players needing to get used to not owning their games. And Blizzard killed a game they sold over 50 million copies of, which made them billions of dollars, and they kept everyone's money. So they were rewarded for that. And that's the path we're on right now without regulation on this issue. So if we don't get regulation, the industry is promising to kill more of our games. But if the regulation backfires, uh-oh, what's going to happen? The industry will still kill our games? So yeah, I'm not scared of the government making gaming worse than this. What the industry wants here already scares me more. Alright, that's it. Last call to go sign the EU initiative and first call to go comment on the Digital Fairness Act. Let's get it done.